There is a moment in every life when you decide to rise, to stand taller than your fear, to speak louder than your doubt, to chase the vision that sets your soul on fire. This is that moment. And here, we walk it together with stories that awaken, voices that inspire, and truths that set you free. This is Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where hope has a voice, and that voice is yours. And welcome to the show, everybody. We've got our guest here, and we've also got Brishelle. And Brishelle, for the first half of the show, because she's charging her computer, is going to be audio only for a little bit. But Brishelle, I would love for you to take the moment in time because Dr. She is our local linguist, and I'm liable to massacre your name. So we're going to have her do it because she does such a better job than I do. Brishelle, have at it.
No problem. We have Dr. Thando Sibanda here today. He is amazing. He talks about, just before the show, we were talking about regenerating your cells and all that fun stuff. So he's done amazing work. He has a ton of knowledge we can all take from this. So if you're listening in, stay for the full hour. And Dr. Thando, thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, and thank you for having me here.
Of course.
Well, you are an amazing man, and you do so much. And we're going to talk about fasting in a little bit, but I'd like to begin talking about your coaching program and what you do, and that you are what do you call it? An interventionist coach? Am I close?
That's what it is. I'm an interventionist coach. Yes.
And I've been doing this a little while, and I have never heard anybody describe themselves as that. So tell our audience what exactly that means.
Sure, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me here, and I'm very excited. Now, an interventionist rather is somebody who comes and brings an intervention so that there is a desired outcome. So for about 16 years now, nearly 17 years, I've been functioning within the neuroscience and leadership space in terms of coaching. And so what I do is that I take individuals, I take C-suite professionals, I take entrepreneurs, sports people. I help them get unstuck and unlock their desired goals. So you may find that somebody wants to go somewhere, get somewhere in life, but they are stuck in a particular place. A company wants to deploy a new culture. They don't know how to. There's a problem with teamwork. So I come in, I deconstruct that scenario for them, and I launch a coaching program so that they can get to their desired goals.
When we're talking about our desired goals, and a lot of people say, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to be that. And is it a lack of belief that holds us back? What is it that prevents us from doing exactly what we think we want to do, or we don't have enough belief in it? Or how does that work?
Well, I think, first of all, there's a lot of head knowledge. In fact, we are living in the age of knowledge. There is more knowledge today than there ever has been. And each year we are transposing the amount of knowledge that's available to everybody. The issue certainly is not knowledge in terms of just intellectual understanding of what one wants to do. The challenge is in understanding how humans operate, how humans process things, how humans develop values, how humans develop the context of purpose. So I always say that there needs to be a print alignment. If you are going to hit your goals, there needs to be a print alignment, which means that I need to understand where I'm at now, right? And where I need to go, just like a GPS. You've got to plot where you are, you plot where you want to go. And then you've got to understand the consequences of not being able to get where you want to go. And so, because if we don't engage consequential thinking, it's very easy to put off certain things that are very important to us doing what we need to do. And so, I remember reading this statistic that up to 74% of people in the United States don't have a goal, for their life. They don't have a vision, rather, for their life. So you find that when 70% at least of the population is simply in existential mode or in survival mode and not in intentional mode, the general direction of the population is that, what, we set goals, but we don't really go after them, But there's a process, there's a very particular process that I take people through when it comes to the context of goal setting. It's not just about there's a goal, this is what I want to do. It's about how do you become the person that can achieve that goal? That's where the real change is.
And unfortunately, in our society, it doesn't work for the powers to be necessarily for everybody to achieve their goals, because they want you to work at your job for 30 years and to be happy working at your job for 30 years because that suits their interests, but it doesn't suit your goals or your passion or your desires. And so a lot of people get beaten down, maybe so. They get beaten down into the belief that they can't achieve their goals because I got to go to work and I got to take care of this and I got to do that. And they're not really goal oriented or focused. And do you help people with that? Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I help people with that. In fact, I help people understand two things. There's something called the process of life. The process of life is the evolution of the human as a cell going through time. Right. First of all, I was a protein in my father's body. And then from there, there was a process. And then, I was a fetus. Then I was born as an infant. Then I became a baby. I became a toddler. I became a teenager, a youth, young adult, parent, grandparent, great-grandparent, then ancestor. That's the evolution of the human cell going through time. Now, there's the context of living life in the process of life. You want the house, you want the car, you want to get married. All of those are what I call process requirements. But then there's another dimension, Kevin, that people can live life on. I call that the purpose of life. So process and purpose are not necessarily the same. A lot of people get caught in the process and the requirement of process, and then they neglect their purpose to ask the key question, why on earth am I here? So I take people through what I call the 4-print method in helping people understand themselves by understanding that everyone that's born into this earth, you are born with a print. You live with a print. When you die, you leave a print behind. And there are 4 key prints that are critical to you living a purposeful life. It's important to understand that purpose is very critical because purpose speaks to the why. It is the main reason why we showed up. And that's why I help people find their blueprint. The blueprint speaks to the context of purpose. Remember, Kevin, when you kill purpose, when you remove purpose, human life becomes meaningless. Everything. This show is driven by purpose. The day you remove purpose from it, you're going to go your way. Your other hosts are going to go their way. You take purpose out of a relationship, a marriage, that marriage dies. Take purpose out of a business relationship, it dies. I read somewhere that where there is no vision, people cast off restraint. But vision is what generates purpose, right? And so you realize that people need to understand the purpose question so that when you understand your purpose, then you need to find your gifts because your gifts service your purpose. Your gifts are those faculties that you are born with that come easier to you and may be difficult for some, but they are there to serve your purpose. Then from your gifts, you need to discover your passion, right? Because your passion carries that drive for you to answer questions because your passion will then service your gift and your gift services your purpose. From your passion, then you must develop your skills because skills are learned behavior. I go to school, I develop a particular skill, and the skill is in my area of passion, which then fits my gifts, which then follows my purpose. Then from my skill, I must choose my path. Where am I going to make a contribution? And from my path, then I must determine my lane. What is my area of specialization? So there has to be that alignment for people to be able to live a purposeful life and move forward in what they do. And here is the challenge, by the way, before I defer back to you. A lot of people have gone and developed skill sets that have nothing to do with passion or purpose or gift. And that's why you find that we hate going to bed. I was reading a statistic that most of the heart attacks happen on a Monday morning. Why? Because people are going to jobs that they hate. They feel like their life has been stolen. Why? Because they developed a skill set that did not match a passion, a path, a gift, or purpose.
Because that skill set is because you can. That doesn't mean that you should, because because you're not fulfilling your purpose that you're here. And Brachel, he talks about this program that he has on his website, which is
The 4 Prints method, I do believe you're talking about.
I do.
Yes, that's what we kind of just covered. If you go look at drthando.com, there is the 4 Prints method up in the top right corner, and it says discover your blueprint, live your identity, leave your signature, and expand your influence. So thank you so much for breaking that down with us. Yeah, Kevin, did you have another question based off that?
Well, it's remarkable how many of us, and by the way, Doctor, I would suggest that if you don't like your job, your weekend ends sometime Sunday afternoon. When now you start thinking about having to go to work on Monday, and I don't want to go to work on Monday, and I got this to do, and then I got this meeting. I don't want to go to the meeting, and then all of that. So not only are you affecting your work, you're also affecting your home life, because now it's Sunday late afternoon and you're in a bad mood because you got to get up in the morning to go to work on Monday and you hate your job and stuff. So it becomes a vicious cycle unless you can break free from that. And so and that's what you help people do, right?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, it's also critical to understand that we all wear different hats. We wear different hats. Like, for example, right now, you're a business owner. You probably a partner to somebody. Maybe you're a parent. Maybe you're a sibling. You are a friend. You are a neighbor. You are a community builder. Those are 7 hats that sometimes you are changing these hats in the moment. When this show is done, somebody calls you, they need help. Now you are a friend. And then someone has a business problem. Now we are all interchanging these heads. I'm a mother, I'm this, I'm that. But all the different heads sit on the same head. And that is why if there's a problem with the heads are going to feel it. so
exactly. And if you put the wrong hat on when you're in the wrong place, then it falls apart.
Oh, it falls apart. Absolutely. So we insist on the health of the head, because healthy people build healthy things. If you are healthy, if your purpose print is on point, if your fingerprint is on point, if your thumbprint is on point, if your footprint is on point. Now, once you've got good alignment in these different prints, guess what? Whichever hat you are wearing is getting a healthy person. That is what is important, because you can't separate humans. I know in the 70s and the 80s, employers used to say, well, we pay you to be happy. We don't care what you are going through. When you walk through these doors, we want to see a smile. And then they realized, with the understanding of neuroscience, that you cannot separate humans from who they are. If their world is falling apart, guess what? At work, that's going to show up somewhere. So the different heads will suffer based on the health and the wellness of the head.
Doctor, I was just thinking about relationships, romantic relationships, and specifically marriage. Because at one point in time, you were very passionate about marrying the person that you fell in love with and you decided to get married, and you were very passionate about that. Somewhere along the way, many of us lose that passion or don't reinforce it. And so then that's how we communicate, miscommunication happens, and then our goals are not aligned, and then we fall apart because we're not passionate about maintaining everything together. And I don't think we talk nearly enough about personal relationships like that when we're talking about passion and fulfillment. Do you?
Yes, I do. In fact, so when you look at relationships, I approach it very differently because I know I spoke about the blueprint, which is the first key print that speaks to purpose, right? But when it comes to relationships, you've got to understand what I call your fingerprint, because your fingerprint speaks to the concept of identity. I'm going to bring it back to your question just now. Now, human identity is premised on a value system. At the baseline of human behavior are what are called values. So values are those particular pillars that, or are those things that we hold valuable. For example, my values are growth, my values are love, my values are integrity, courage. So there are those values. You've got a baseline of 26 values, 10 secondary values, and 5 primary values that you actively project from. Now, your values create culture. Culture is how we show up. That is why every organization must have a culture. Otherwise, people will bring their individual cultures. But that culture sits on a value system. Whether you are Christian, there is a Christian culture. You are Muslim, there's a Christian, there's a Muslim culture, there's a Hindu culture. All those are based on value systems. I am African. The culture is Ubuntu. It's I am because we are. It's a collective identity. It takes a village to raise a child. All of those are value systems, right? Value systems produce culture. Culture produces belief systems and mindsets. Now, belief systems is who people essentially believe that they are. Remember, you don't interrogate the world. You don't interrogate your belief system. No, you interrogate the world from your belief system. Now, your belief system creates mindsets. Mindsets create words. Words become actions. Actions repeatedly become habits. Habits, right, become character. Character is the external confirmation of who you are in your habitual framework. We are what we repeatedly do, and we become more of who we are becoming. Then now your character then becomes your destiny. Here is where it gets interesting. When it comes to relationships, people connect because of interest, but they don't connect because of values. So whenever I'm doing relational counseling or premarital counseling, the first thing I do is a values baseline. Because out of 10 secondary values or 10 values for each couple, if we are only sharing 1 or 2 values and 8 other values are going in the opposite directions, I can tell you within a couple of years or a decade, that relationship is headed for some challenges. But if there can be values alignment, your values align with my values, and maybe my values are mainly relational. There's a whole matrix that I take people through because your values can either be relational, they can be driving, or they can be neutral, and there's a number of classifications. But if there is a values buy-in, I buy into who you are, because how you show up and how you will show up is based on your value system. So if people in relationships understood the power of values and not just the power of attraction, external attraction and passion, because all of those fade because they are based on season, they are based on looks, they are based on interest, and all of those things change. But the essence of who the person is, if you bought into the values, believe me, it's a much better way of working together.
Where were you in 1983 when I got married? It might have saved me a whole lot of trouble. Rochelle, we need to take a break, and And we're talking to Dr. Thando Sibanda, right?
Simbanda. Yes.
Perfect. And we'll be right back.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become seven-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
And welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin McDonald. Brichelle is in the ether someplace, but she is here in spirit. She's going to join us physically in the second half. But Brichelle, did what Doctor just say, did that make a lot of sense to you?
I think it made too much sense. I'm sitting over here having the deepest conversation with myself because I've never had somebody be able to just like break it down and follow the words. How you said this is this, and this is this, and this becomes this. And I'm like, well, and now I understand why it is such a journey, because when you are just changing the thoughts, you got those thoughts become this and they become that, and they have progressiveness into them. And we talk about how a lot of people, we want things to be right away. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to make the changes, I'm going to do it, and then it's going to be brand new me when I wake up tomorrow. And it doesn't really happen like that. But it, that's what I understand now even more than enjoy that journey, because you're literally building yourself, and you get to choose, am I going to write a new chapter tomorrow? Is this going to be a new page that I'm continuing, or am I going to start a whole new book? And evaluating where you're at with yourself, what you do understand, what you're capable of, and how we talked about in our last show, accepting who you are, probably helps in so many ways of when you meet somebody else and accepting them and their values, because sometimes it's so sad when those things don't really add up anymore, and those values change a little bit or are persuaded in different ways. And I want your perspective on this, because we've been talking about it a lot. It's not about what happens to you, but how you handle it, and kind of your view on that.
Yes, absolutely, and thank you very much for that observation. I think it's very critical to realize that that people naturally change.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, change is more constant than anything. I mean, I teach on the four different just phases of life. That you start off, you go through three or four primes. You go through what is called your physical prime. So when you are in your teens, into youth, 20s, 25, that's your physical prime. Your physical prime is heralded by just a lot of energy. It's a lot of energy. You can work the whole week, go to school the whole week, jive the whole weekend, show up on Monday without breaking a stride, because your body is leading, your evolution from the physical context. But now here is the challenge with the characteristics of that. Physical prime is very important because you have a lot of energy for things. You can just get stuff done, but you don't have a lot of life experience.
Yeah.
So you make a lot of immature decisions. You date for the wrong reasons. You get into wrong relationships. You lose a lot of money. You invest money terribly. You have not put in enough life experience. You don't even have a decade of experience in terms of just the school of hard knocks, or just being a connoisseur of life to be able to make certain decisions about where you want to go and why you want to go there. A lot of it is all about interest and not really essence, right? And then you move from your physical prime, and then you get into your 30s, 40s. This is what is called your intellectual prime. Now, your intellectual prime is very important because between 30 and 50 there, you now have at least a decade or a little bit more of experience from your 20s. You've gotten burnt a little bit, but now your physical strength is slowing down. That's why in your 30s, you don't have as much energy as you had in your 20s. You could volunteer for 10 things in your 20s, but in your 30s, you're like, no, I need to manage my time and my energy much better. You are asking better questions of the things you are getting involved in. That's why you've got more Nobel Prize winners between your late 30s to your early 50s than any other age group, because that is the intellectual age. These are the best years of your life, and that's where, you want to see, that will build something, get someone in that age group. They still have a bit of energy, but now their intellectuality is at their highest capacity. Then you hit your mid-50s, which is more your emotional prime. You've kind of seen everything there. You've seen a funeral. You've seen the kid that the girl that fell pregnant, and still had a great life. You've seen the uncle that went to jail, to prison, came back and still established a business and was a great example. Nothing phases you. You are more fulfilled there because you've seen life in its essence. Now, how that works out in terms of relationships is about once you understand values, because with each transition, sometimes there is a shift in who the person is. The most important thing is to understand, who am I becoming? In any relationship or in any space that you are in life, you must understand, who am I becoming? A lot of people, for example, want to be millionaires, but they don't want to become the kind of a person that can attract $1 million, retain $1 million, and grow $1 million. So we are outcomes based, but we are process novices. And so even in our relational context, I need to understand, okay, I need not only to accept who I am, but I need to be very truthful about who I am becoming, because who I am becoming is the ultimate person that can either be sustainable or fail in relationships. I think there needs to be that deeper, just understanding, self-reflection, self-knowledge, self-regulation, and then self-management.
It's interesting because I'm this summer is my 50th high school reunion. Sure. And I know of 2 couples that got married in high school and are still together. Wow. I know several other. One has been married 4 times, and right. I said, "Why don't you just get a dog? They're much nicer than anyway." But it's because I think it's because, number one, their values lined up when they were very young, and as they changed, their focus was on each other, so their values lined up and their values changed together, which is why they're still together. Does that make sense?
Oh yes, it does. Because remember, in your earlier years, you have a lot of driving values because you are in the building phase, and then in your mid years, your values change because even your risk profile changes. But when you are younger, you everything is drive, so your values are about building. But once you hit the middle phases, the values change, they become more about longevity, stability, right? And then when you get into your 50s, your values change. Now it's more about experience, adventure, smell the roses. So you find that couples that have stayed together for that long, they are able to evolve together. So that's why I say the human being is all about transitions. From time you are a child to being a youth to being an adult, stay alone, find a job, get married, live with somebody. It's all about these different transitions, and how well we manage those has a lot to do with our values. But if you are with somebody that your values can change together, you will most likely stay together. The issue comes when somebody's values change and the other person's values remain stagnant. Then there is a gap between the two. And then the bigger the gap, by the time they try to fix things, one is so far here, one is so far here, that it seems easier to just build momentum in different directions. And that is why people break up.
And that is why I was married for 24 years. It was the best 6 months of my life. That's because we changed over time and our values changed. And so it became impossible for us to continue because we weren't even talking the same language to each other.
Absolutely. It's not that you were a bad person or she was a bad person.
But no, she was a bad person, but that's beside the point.
I'm not going to go
there. Well, there's a story that doesn't need to be told today, but yeah.
Yeah, it's just that when there's an evolution of values on different trajectories and there is no reconciliation of that, that's how people end up going separate ways. Yeah.
This is Michelle, isn't this a fascinating discussion?
Yes, and after we take this break, I want to ask another question about your website and kind of go a different direction, but I also want to end this conversation about relationships that I think is way more needed than we're talking about. I want to know if there's something that you figured out that helps people when they want to align their values and they see where they struggle in that and they want to be each other together and they love each other. Is there maybe just one simple thing that they can both do to help build that a little bit and strengthen that muscle rather than to just give up?
And Doctor, hold the answer to that. And Rochelle, remember the question. We need to take our break and we'll be right back because this is going to take a couple of moments. Yes. I can tell right now. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk. And I got to ask you, Dr. Thando, did you think that she looked like that when you were listening to her voice?
I had no idea, man.
Yes. I get a lot of people are trying to always figure out. They're like, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but what are you? Because I have curly hair and my eyes change color sometimes, and depending on how much sun I've been in, my skin changes. So we all have those unique things, and I want to follow up with the question I had about relationships. If two people are struggling and they realize, hey, when it all comes down to it, we really love each other, but we don't do so well in aligning these values and working towards them together. Is there just at least one thing that you found that can help them create that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. I think first of all is to come back into alignment. We need to align our paths, because sometimes people can want to be together, but if the paths are going in different directions, it's normally very difficult. And so I always say, well, first of all, let's find the middle path of alignment, and are you willing to put in the work to become the kind of person that can coexist, from a direction and from a values context with the other person? Now, here's where it gets interesting. Remember, I said that you have a basket of 26 subconscious values. Remember, your subconscious mind carries what? Over 90-something% of your existence, because that's where your memory, your priorities, your character, everything else sits in your subconscious mind. Your neocortex, literally, your intellect plays a very small role, because beyond 15, 20 seconds, it feeds from the subconscious mind. Now, the real person is the subconscious mind. The real person is not the smiler. The real person is not the one with the with the kid eyes. No, the real person is the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind, that's where you get into the values system. I always say, if a couple can align their values, particularly when they want to work things out, if they can align their values and buy into each other's values that are different from their own. For example, if you want to patch things up with somebody, right, and then you find that maybe they value growth, but you value independence, right, and that is leading you towards different things. You need to be able to buy into that, so that maybe if they value growth and they need to go back to school, and you value independence, you are okay to be supportive. Then you are not making them feel guilty for, hey, you know what, you stopped working and you went back to school, now I gotta pay all the bills. So you gotta realign the values more than the interests will follow. So see, this is what I usually say. You see, if you have a partner that is sitting on the couch and they don't want to go to work, they are flipping the channels and eating all the food in the fridge, and they don't want to be useful at all, right? And then it's not a great thing to say, hey, you lazy bum, you need to change your behavior, blah, 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 blah. Right? What you do is that you go back into the value system. That is why behavior change is a process. You go back and find what value or what absence of a value is sponsoring the behavior. Because remember, I said values become culture. Culture becomes belief systems. Belief systems become mindsets. Mindsets, words. Words, actions. Actions, habits. Right? Because neurons that fire together wire together. That's how we develop habitual framework. Then habits only become character. That's number 8 in the baseline of human behavior. So now to change behavior without impacting the value system that sponsors that behavior, it can only be short-lived. So that's why there is so much hope for couples that want to recalibrate, rediscover, rekindle their fire. You get a values alignment. Then once there is values alignment, then it's easy to then get them to start on a path that helps them, to become one.
Yeah. And with that said, if somebody loses all their values and they don't want to have any anymore, and they're going through what a lot of people have been calling the dark night of the soul, and or you see that in order for us to truly love each other and to go in the paths that we're aligning with, finding ourselves or not, it's okay to walk away. And you have to be that bigger person. You have to choose yourself first, because a lot of times people are like, well, they'll change and they'll start to understand and they'll get it. And eventually this, eventually that. And you can't have those expectations on anybody else because you can't control them, but you have full control of you and your reality. And that brings me to my next point. I'd love to bring up, doesn't have to be long, Kevin. I know you probably have a lot of questions too. But on your website, you have the 21-day fasting challenge. What created that? Where did it come from? And what have you seen since you started it?
All right. Yeah. So well, I come from a Christian family. My parents, kind of taught us fasting from the time that we were kids, but only that was mainly from a spiritual dimension to it. And so when I grew up and I started doing a lot of studies and just following up, I discovered just the importance of fasting for myself. And I think that's why I wrote the 2 books on fasting, one on the spirituality and one on the science, literally the process of fasting. The powerful thing about the 21-day fast is the fact that it is the fast that really helps you reset and renew. I always say you retreat, you reset, and you renew yourself. So a lot of renewal lies in that 21-day fast, because at that point, remember, 4 hours after fasting, your body is processing all the food, and then from there it gets into stage 2 of fasting, which is literally burning up all the glycogen that's stored in the liver, and that gets used up for metabolic processes. And then 16 hours into your fast, right, the body starts switching from using a sugar as a fuel source into burning ketones, into ketosis, where now it shifts and it starts burning fat, which is a cleaner burn. An average adult has over 200,000 calories of energy in their body. And so you can easily go 21 days without eating. I think the problem is a problem of the mind. Then you'll find that the deeper you go into fasting, your body then starts what is called autophagy. Autophagy simply means that your body then starts to eat itself. So it will go after all the broken down cells, the dead cells, the tumors, everything else that is not progressive. It breaks that down and it uses that as a fuel source. And so the deeper you go into the fast, the deeper you go into cell regeneration, the deeper you go into cell renewal, the deeper you go into cell energy. I've done a number of 21-day fasts myself. Almost every year I do a 21-day fast, and it has yielded great results. I used to be twice the person you see just in terms of my weight, and fasting and those protocols have helped me a lot in my life.
Doctor, I got to ask you, when you are going to go on a 21-day fast and it is a week before that 21-day fast, are you looking forward to it with excitement and renewal, or dread and stuff?
It's a battle of the mind. The first thing I did, Kevin, was to write a book called The Winning Mindset. And then after The Winning Mindset, then I wrote these two books, because really fasting is a battle of the mind. Remember your brain has got its own preferences. That's why it's easy to eat for your brain, but not for your body. So your brain can crave things, right? Your mind can crave things that can kill your body. That is how people are hooked onto drugs, and people are hooked onto ice cream and chocolate and stuff like that, because something can be, your brain can decide, but it can be difficult for you. It can be bad for you. So a fast at that nature, the first preparation is mind preparation. So I've told myself that because I understand the outcome. I've had people that have come onto the fasting program, and this guy was like, man, I didn't think I could live another 6 months. Everything in me was pain. Everything was pain. And the guy came on, did a 21-day fast. By day number 14, all the aches had gone. He's alive today, man, gave us an amazing testimony, But the biggest issue is the mind game. You tell yourself, this is good for me. It may be tough, but it is good for me. After 3-4 days, your mind kind of gets into it.
Well, and your body gets used to it. I've done fasts. I haven't done 21 days. I've done 2.
I've done 21 days on just water, by the way. No food, just water.
What about tea?
And we've been talking to the doctor. I don't know how to even answer that. That's just water for 21 days.
Just water for 21 days. Absolutely, just water. Nothing else but water.
Did you put some sugar in it and stuff?
No, what I did, in fact, on these long protocols, right? We always say make sure you are checking your blood pressure and your blood sugar. So you must have a blood pressure monitor and you must have a blood sugar monitor, so that you don't go below 65, because then you can actually become hypoglycemic and all of that stuff, and also you check your blood pressure to make sure it's okay. Man, on all the fasts I've done, by day number 4, blood sugar is textbook perfect. By day number 10, if you had blood pressure issues, your body resets and your blood pressure goes back to 120/80. It's such an amazing process to see the body renew itself. In fact, by the way, this concept comes from just understanding nature. See, when you look at nature, the concept of renewal is there in nature. That is why when you look at reptiles have a way to renew themselves. What do? They shed off the old skin, right? They go through exodus, and they shed off the old skin and they slither away in a new skin. Also birds, they go through molting, where they pluck off the old feathers and then they become anew. And my question when I went into these studies was, what is the renewal code for humans? Then I realized that, oh my God, the renewal code for humans is when they fast, because when humans stop eating, your digestive tract takes a rest. Your body literally has a time, moment, and space to heal itself. That is where it becomes very, very powerful. So yeah, 21 days on just water, no food, no nothing.
Well, and because you, Burchelle, could you do it now? Now, what about a gal, someone like Burchelle, who weighs 115 pounds soaking wet? Can her body tolerate that long of a fast? And would she like lose 20 pounds, or which I would hate to see what she looked like if she was like 85 pounds, but.
Yeah. Well, and Dr. Thando, I told you before we came that I do have hypoglycemia, I've been told in my life, but I've also learned that sugar is our number one killer. It's not really the salt. Our body needs that salt, but all these fake sugars. And when you have real sugar, it doesn't affect your body the same. But for me, naturally, I don't really eat in the morning or in the day most times. If I don't eat in the morning, I don't eat through the day. And then once 5 or 6 o'clock comes, before the attitude hits, I have to make sure I get some food in me. And at that point, it really is just, what exactly am I putting in my body after I've been fasting? And that's a huge thing, because a lot of people will do these huge, crazy fasts and they'll get their body to an extremely healthy point to where it can depend on itself. And then they go eat McDonald's and they go to a buffet and they go have the seed oils and they have the sugar, and it's kind of killer for them. So I want to get your perspective on that and how people can maybe reframe their mind when we come back from this next break.
Thank you.
And what I'm still processing 21 days on water only. But actually, I've done fasts, and if you do it, even if you only make it 5 or 7 or 8 days, you'll find that a lot of your the aches and pains go away. Your liver has a chance to recover. Your kidneys have a chance to recover. And so that when you get done with 7 or 8 days and you can go get that half case of beer and no, I'm kidding. We'll be right back. Stay with us, everybody. The strength of staying kind from your friends at Positive Talk Radio. Kindness is not weakness. It takes real strength to stay kind in a world that often rewards anger, ego, and control. Being kind means choosing to act from your values, not your wounds. It means showing grace even when no one's watching. But kindness doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean letting people take advantage of your time, your energy, or your peace. You can be kind and still say no. You have a soft heart with firm boundaries. The strongest people I know are the ones who choose compassion without losing themselves. They've been hurt. They've been tested. And still, they choose to love and lead and to lift others anyway. Kindness is not about pleasing everybody. It's about honoring who you are and how you treat others, even when it's hard. So stay kind, stay human, and stay strong. And always remember this: be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got. And welcome very much. Welcome very much.
That was unique.
I'm Burchelle, I must be getting a little tired. Either that or I've been fasting too long. And Burchelle, reintroduce our guest for everybody, please.
Yes, we have Dr. Thando Sibanda. That is THANDO Sibanda, and go to his website, which is drthando.com, and you can see all this that we've been talking about. And if you're new joining in, stay with us a little bit and maybe it'll make sense. But yeah, when we talk about fasting and really, does it come down to kind of just listening to your body too and knowing what's best for yourself and not maybe forcing yourself to do things that could be risky?
Yeah. So for example, we have a residence fasting program here. We've got a facility where someone can come to fast. When somebody's coming to fast, it depends. Are they fasting for lifestyle purposes, or are they fasting for spiritual purposes? And then, of course, there is a baseline. You've got to understand where are they in their health journey, so that you can recommend anything from a 3-day fast, a 7-day fast, 10-day fast, 14-day or 21-day fast. Those are the kinds of fasts that we have at the moment. So yeah, I think self-knowledge is very, very important. But also you need to understand the goals. What are you seeking with fasting? Some people feel like, I just want to reset. And somebody maybe is dealing with some level of diagnosis, and they feel like, okay, maybe I'm struggling with obesity. I want to fast. I'll tell you something. The biggest thing about my fast was not even the fact that I lost so many pounds. It was the fact that I got control back. You see, if you can walk into a store and a chocolate cake calls you, it means you've given up control. If there are certain habits that can just take a hold of you and run your life, you don't have control of your life anymore. Now, the biggest benefit of fasting for me, and certainly a lot of people that I talk to after the fasts are done, is the fact that they say, I've got control back. I can say no. I can say no to food. I can say no to this. And because that level of discipline is something that you've really earned, you are able to then apply it to different areas of your life. And so that's a very, very big win. That's probably one of the biggest wins, more than just the fact that your body, underwent autophagy. All of that is great, but you come out of there with a certain tenacity in life that you are able to apply to other areas very, very progressively.
That seems fair.
It's interesting that because I've done a 2-day fast, and of course it was with a structured program, and they had a drink that you drank and all that kind of stuff. And at the end of that, I wasn't hungry. So we went and I had a salad, and I was just fine, because your body adjusts, doesn't it? And also the other thing is that in our environment, and in maybe somewhere else not, but in the United States, our environment is so polluted that your body your liver and your kidneys and your cells need to rest occasionally so that they can flush out the impurities that we are just inundated with everywhere we go. And so I think it can be a really good thing if you want to incorporate it, and you don't turn into a monster on day 3 when you're so hungry.
That's so true. The biggest challenge is that we've got a foodie culture. We've got a foodie culture. Remember, our biology, right, in our neurology is still literally premised on our ancestors from thousands of years ago. They didn't eat every day. Because they were hunter-gatherers, they only ate what they killed, right? So that was the thing, and so that's why the body would always store, convert some of the food into fat so that you have energy when you need it. But now the culture is terrible. You wake up, you have breakfast, and then 2 hours later you have a snack. Then you have another midday snack. Then you have lunch. Then you have another snack at 4 p.m. Then you have dinner. Then you have another snack at 8. Then you have a bedtime snack. Then in your car there are snacks. Then in your bag there are snacks. So you find that your system is not taking a rest. And all of the stuff that you are eating, by the way, is not motivated by health, but it is motivated by a capitalistic drive. It's all about making money. Snacking is not necessary for your body. It's a marketing gimmick that was designed by people that want to sell you food all the time. I mean, when I understood that they use palate experts to launch food products, it's a science. They will go and and bring in consultants to say, man, when people taste this, what is the palate score? Why? Because you just can't rely on the fact that people are gonna buy because they want to. Get them addicted. Make sure there is sugar in in tomato sauce. There's sugar in bread. There's sugar in everything, because sugar is just as addictive as cocaine and all of those. Guess what? You now have a population that is coming back for more. And that's the challenge. So our system is not resting. That's number one. Number two, we need to eat for the body and not for the mind. A lot of times we eat because it tastes good. Oh my God, it tastes good. And here in America, man, you take an apple and you can put peanut butter in it. You mix all of these different things and it tastes like heaven. But what is it doing to your gut? So we need to eat for the body and not eat for the mind. And I know a lot of our cultures, like I come from a carb-heavy culture, and a lot of that culture is responsible for a lot of the, the markers, the longevity markers, because you find that as people get older, they become susceptible to high blood pressure, renal failure, high blood sugar, and all of those things. But it's because for 40 years, I've been laying a baseline due to cultural eating. So there's the industrial side to it, and then there is the cultural side to it. But I must eat for my body and not for the messages around me.
Which makes a great deal of sense if you can get your mind out of the picture.
Absolutely.
Because when that chocolate cake, I know, Prashel, when that chocolate eclair with the whipped cream and no.
Prashel looks good. You look good, by the way.
Oh, you look. If you could speak, that would be great. Oh, you're still quiet. Did you run? She has decided that
did this one work?
That works fine. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, well, I'm learning these microphones. Thank you for being so patient with me, everybody. And no, I don't really like the sweets. That's not what gets me. But one thing that my blood type doesn't like that my brain does is a juicy fat steak. If you put a steak in front of me, I would run a mile after it. I'm not big for sweets, and still it's one of those things that, how is my body taking this? What is it doing with it? And how is that affecting me? Thinking about that with your mental state and your emotional state and your spiritual state. And I loved how you tied in with fasting. What is your goal? Like, what are you trying to achieve here? Is it just for fun, just to prove to yourself you can do it? Or is this something that you want to have an impact here or there, and kind of helping people decide that? Because that's way bigger than just doing a fast. And I wanted to take a moment before we run out of time. You have so much knowledge and so many things that you've done. I just want you to share one thing that was crucial for you and changed your life when you learned it, that you'd love to share with our listeners to allow this conversation to go out.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I think the main thing that changed for me and revolutionized my life is the understanding of neural plasticity. Now, we grew up in a culture that said, well, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That said, people are who they are and they cannot change. And so once I went to school and understood that, the brain has the capacity to learn until the day you die, and that by learning, you can literally reestablish new neural pathways, you can learn new behaviors, you can establish new visions, you can rediscover yourself, you can reset, and you can renew. That set me on a path of growth, because then I knew that I could not be defined by the mistakes that I had made in the past, either out of circumstantial foundations, or rather out of how I was brought up, or out of my own mistakes, but that I could at any given point in my life, cut the umbilical cord of the past, look at who I wanted to be in the future, and I could start at that very moment and start curating and creating the future that I want to be. Nelson Mandela called it creating a memory of the future, where you live so intentionally in a way that you are crafting how you want to be remembered. A lot of people don't think about that. We're like, yeah, well, they remember me the way they remember me. But you can be so intentional. And knowing that, I realized that, man, I could go and I could bet new things. The books on fasting and everything else, that's just a part of me expressing that for my generation.
And Rochelle, his website, please.
Yes, his website is drthando.com. Go take a look. You can see everything we've talked about right off the bat. The 4 Prints method, which in itself is insanely powerful, the 20-day fasting challenge, and really just any other thing that you'd like to learn about Thando and what he's been able to learn through his life. And thank you again so much, Doctor, for taking this time to spend with us and share your knowledge with our audience. I could not imagine how many people this will impact.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
And we've really enjoyed having you here. And I learned something new about Rochelle today. She is an animal lover. She loves animals. She loves to either pet them or eat them. We'll see you next time, everybody. Thank you for being part of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where stories inspire and voices remind us of what truly matters. May today's conversation give you hope, courage, and a reason to keep moving forward. And just remember, till next time, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.